The reason I took that front bumper off is I want to try to take this front clip off in one piece, and taking that bumper off will make it easier. It'll be less stuff to hang up on. Also, the front bumper has to come off anyway to put that driver's side frame rail on there. Might as well go on and take these bumper brackets off. The small bumper bracket, I'm gonna pull off the driver's side, but I'm gonna leave the passenger side on. The next thing I need to do is get under this hood and disconnect everything that's connected to this front cap. I hate to disconnect these air conditioning lines because it's still sealed up, but I'm gonna have to go on and disconnect them. Seven eighths. These air conditioning fittings are coming off a lot easier than I thought they would. So this power steering pump lines they're not 3/4 and they're not 11/16, so they must be metric. So 18 millimeter. I'm really glad to see that this air conditioning system was sealed up like it was. It's going to make it a heck of a lot easier to get it going again. Anyway, I'm going to do my best to keep it sealed up, keep the trash and moisture out of it. I'm gonna take this jack out just so I can get to the headlight wiring harness. There's 3 screws under here for that jack mount. Okay, this is the front axle vent tube. And this is the tank vent. Power steering lines. disconnect this washer fluid bottle so I can undo the wires behind it. I'm going to unclip this headlight harness because I'm not going to unplug it from the fuse box. I'm just going to unhook it here. Get these brake lines next. This hood release cable needs to come off. This grill needs to come off of here so I can access the body mounts. Will also make it easier to disconnect this headlight harness. The other headlight harness ground. There's a little mud guard that needs to come off on both sides. So the next thing I got to do is remove the hood, and then there's 12 bolts that bolt that front cap on. Okay, so I'm gonna start pulling off bolts to get this front cap off. And there are 2 body mount bolts, one on the passenger side and one on the driver's side. This long bolt is hanging up right here, so I'm gonna have to cut it off. Okay, that's the 2 front cap body mounting bolts. I've got 5 more bolts on each side where the fender mounts to the cab. I'm gonna put this towel here, and then I'm gonna break out these 4 bolts, and then we'll take the hood off. You're probably gonna have to hold it down low too, Dad. Okay. Yeah, bring one hand down. Okay, there you go. Oh shit. It's all right there. Okay, you ready? It shouldn't be too bad.
Wait a minute. Okay, yeah. Got it.
So Dad, tomorrow I want to pull this whole front cap off, and it should all come off in one piece.
Oh, okay. How heavy do you think this is?
This probably weighs 250 pounds. 200, maybe less than 200.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start taking these last fender bolts out. So I see there's 2 shims under this bolt, so I'll write that down. So whenever I put it back together, I'll know to put 2 shims here. Okay, there's 2 bolts on this inner fender that bolt to the body. Have to get the impact on that. So there's a bolt here on the lower driver's side fender. The passenger side also has one. There's 3 shims, so I'm gonna put me a little note here. And that'll help me remember. 3 shims go there. So the last bolt holding this fender on is right under this sheet metal. I'm just going to loosen it up. I'm not going to take it off all the way until I get ready to take the front cap off. Yep, it's already coming loose. Okay, we'll knock this passenger side loose now. Got 2 shims on this side. Tie these wires back so they don't flop around and hang up on stuff. If you want to know what that banging noise is, that's acorns falling on the metal roof of my shop. next thing I want to do is take this tailgate off. Next, I'll get all these bed bolts out of here. There's 8 of them. Last bolt. Okay, now that all the bolts are out, I need to disconnect the tail light wiring harness and the fuel filler neck. Okay, that's the tail light harness. This old clamp is stuck. Okay, the bed is ready to come off now. 1987 was the last year that Chevrolet put wood in their truck beds. GM were still using the square nuts in 1987. They were probably the last manufacturer to use square nuts. I guess if it worked for 75 years, why change it? This is the wood bed that I got for my truck. We'll have a look at it. This is red oak wood. It's been milled for the rails. This is a center board, so it's milled here and here. This is an end board, so it's milled on one side. I am gonna have to drill a few holes when I install this bed kit. So the end board, one of them goes here, and I'll have to drill out these holes right here. The center boards, I won't have to drill out any of these where the rails go. I will have to drill out these bed hold down bolt holes. So the boards are measuring 0.767 inches. So I've had someone tell me that that GM originally used southern yellow pine for the bed floors, which makes sense because why would GM use expensive oak when they could just get some southern yellow pine, which would have been a lot cheaper, probably a quarter of the price. It's hard to tell because this wood is so deteriorated, but I believe they're right. I believe this is southern yellow pine. This red oak is going to look really nice in the back of that truck. To get the body off, I've got to disconnect this steering shaft here. I'm also going to remove the steering gearbox because to replace, it's connected to the frame that I need to replace. So one of the issues with that 3-inch body lift is if you can see how stretched out this rag joint is. It looks like they even bent this metal here to get it to fit. The solution to this, if you're going to have a body lift, is to get an extended steering shaft. You can see here how bent the end of the steering shaft, this plate is. And I think it's pressed on here. I don't believe you can replace that. See how far this side is down and this side is pushed up. Go ahead and take this rag joint off of here. Disconnect this drag link next. So next I'll get the steering gearbox. These bolts that bolt up this steering gear are not supposed to have nuts on them, so I suspect some of these threads may be stripped out. that steering gearbox just had all kind of different bolts in it. That's a metric bolt that had nuts. The steering gearbox is threaded. This is the only correct bolt to fasten that steering gearbox. And I don't know why there's a spacer there, but that's how they are from the factory. So this is the factory battery cable, and the way it's run to the starter, these bolts here go into the oil pan. I believe this bracket connects to the front of the engine, and this is what connects to the starter. I'm gonna go on and move it just so it ain't flopping around. Plus, I'm probably gonna replace it because somebody's put a aftermarket end on it. I'm gonna get this front axle vent line next. You can see how tight that thing is because they didn't lengthen it whenever they put the lift kit on the truck. I'm gonna go on and cut this since I'm gonna replace it anyway. And I'm gonna cover this hole up because there's all kind of critters down here in these swamps that'll get up and make nests and all kind of stuff in there. The next thing I need to get is this emergency brake cable and the wiring harness for the fuel tank and the tail lights. The only thing left to do to get the cab off is the 4 body mounts. This is the driver's side cross member where the cab mounts, and it's got this lower plate on it. I believe the plate is missing from this passenger side. I'm just going to loosen this one. I'm not going to take it all the way out until I get rigged up on the cab, ready to pull it. This is the driver's side front cab mount, and this washer is bent down to where it's hard to get a socket on here. We'll try this smaller socket and see what it does. Maybe I'll get lucky. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna have to cut through all of this. I'm gonna have to cut through the 3-inch block here and the bolt. So what do you think about that?
I think it looks dangerous.
Okay, I got it rigged up and ready to go now, so the last thing I need to do is cut out this body mount. Yeah, this body lift will not be going back on this truck. And there's a few reasons why. One of the reasons is this fuel tank hangs down, and for it to look right, you would need to raise that fuel tank. This steering shaft would need to be replaced with a longer steering shaft. Your bumper brackets would have to be raised to make it look right. Your rear bumper brackets would have to be raised. And once I get this truck going, I want to drive it. I'm going to drive it every day. It'll be more drivable without the body lift. I'm going to keep the 6-inch spring lift though. I'll just have to get rid of the 38s and get some 35s. I'm a little bit worried about bending this sheet metal, this pinch weld on the back of the cab, so I built these blocks to put in here. Okay, I'm gonna finish taking out these last 2 body mount bolts. I've been gathering up parts for the gold truck, and a guy was parting out this old military Blazer, and it had a blown engine. Well, I just bought the whole truck from him, so I paid $1,500 for it. But it has a 400 turbo and a transfer case, which is going to be perfect for that gold truck. It also has a few other good parts. It's got the Hydro Boost braking system, if I ever want to put that on the gold truck. And which I'm not going to put these wheels on the gold truck, but these are 6-lug steel wheels, and that's going to be nice for some future project. Plus, it also should have a good rear end and good front end if I ever need that. So it's well worth $1,500. So here's the 400 turbo for that Blazer. So the guy had already had it pulled out when I bought the truck. I don't know if they tried to do a big jump or got into a big wreck, but they did a number on this frame here. This frame is completely broke in half. Now, I don't know anything about riveting, and there's not a whole lot out there. What I did find, though, there was a company that sells these smaller bucking tools, and they fit my air hammer. So this is what I got. I've got a 3/8 round head, a 3/8 modified brazier, a 5/16 universal bucking head, and a 5/16 modified brazier. Since I didn't know anything about riveting and bucking heads, I just bought what I thought would work, and just that way I would have the right one. So I ended up buying 4 of them. And the one that fits the best is this 3/8 round head. So that's probably the one I'm going to use. These are the rivets, and I got them from a blacksmith supply company. I've got the 1-inch, 3/4, and 1/2 inch, and they're 3/8 diameter rivets. In the next video, I'll knock this driver's side frame rail off and attempt to put the other one on here.